Tonight on Reporting Scotland, one of Scotland's most high-profile cases, known as the doorstep murder, is to be completely reinvestigated. It will see police and prosecutors re-examine the killing of banker Alistair Wilson outside his home in Nairn. The killer has never been caught, almost 20 years on. Also tonight, an announcement confirming Glasgow is to host the Commonwealth Games in 2026 is expected as early as tomorrow morning.
I think that's quite good. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I remember the last time it was here and I just thought the atmosphere in the city was great.
The final decision is due imminently tonight on a controversial proposal to build a resort on the shores of Loch Lomond.
In sport, we'll look back on the weekend's football action, and Scotland's women begin their preparations ahead of their first appearance at the T20 World Cup.
Richard Gadd, Baby Reindeer.
And a night of glory for Baby Reindeer at the Emmys, and it's Scots creator and star Richard Gadd. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. It's one of Scotland's most notorious unsolved murders. Father of two, Alistair Wilson, shot dead outside his home in Nairn in the Highlands. And now, almost 20 years on from his killing, Scotland's top law officer has ordered a complete reinvestigation of the case with a new team of police and prosecutors to take it on. Our reporter Chris McLennan has the story.
That's the hardest part, that really is, after not having him. It's just having, well, no explanation, no understanding, and as the older the boys get, that is harder. Why somebody would do it to their dad and why somebody's not being caught.
The murder of Alistair Wilson is one of Scotland's most notorious unsolved murders. The Nairn banker had been preparing his sons for bed in late November 2004 when a man knocked at the door and requested him by name. He then shot Alistair several times. In the near 20 years since the shooting, detectives have probed numerous leads and motives, but the killer has never been traced.
Nairn was a very, very, very peaceful, lovely place to live in, plenty of work, everything was going for Nairn, and to have a murder in a town like Nairn was, in my lifetime, there was only one murder before that, so in my lifetime it's unheard of.
Now, Scotland's top law officer has ordered a complete re-investigation by a fresh team in a bid to secure justice for Alistair's family.
I mean, it's extraordinary because there's already been a full re-investigation. 2017, 2018, that's exactly what they were doing. I mean, literally going through every bit of evidence. I mean, that's thousands of interviews, DNA samples, re-interviewing people. So it's a major step. And the massive question for all of us, and of course mostly the family, is will it actually provide any justice?
The Crown Office and Police Scotland will now formalise its team to take forward this investigation that could bring the answers so many have longed for.
If they're going to do something differently, or they've got some information that makes them concerned that things weren't done well in the past, then I guess that provides more of an opportunity to find something new.
And as the anniversary approaches again, it's another twist in the family's search for justice.
A great many people's no longer around now, but there would be a feeling of closure for the people of Nairn as well.
Well, Chris is in Nairn Forest tonight. And Chris, after 20 years then, what is the significance of this development today?
Yeah, good evening, Laura. So it'll be 20 years in November since Alistair Wilson, the Nairn banker here, was shot on his doorstep behind me here. Now, what today's instruction from the Lord Advocate will do is it'll put fresh eyes onto this case and fresh officers and prosecutors. But detectives have probed this for the best part of 2 decades and have followed numerous leads and motives during that time. But as to why now this has been reopened, well, it's not really clear. Developments recently had suggested that a suspect may be close to being arrested, so today's announcement has sort of come out of the blue. Now, what will happen is all the evidence that's been gathered over the past 20 years, that'll be brought together and thoroughly gone through. But it really does now seem as if efforts are being ramped up in a bid to bring some justice to Alistair's family and also to finally catch the person responsible for this murder.
OK, Chris McLennan in Nairn, thank you. 10 years on from when Glasgow last hosted the Commonwealth Games, a deal to bring the event back to the city in 2026 is expected to be announced tomorrow. BBC Scotland News understands the Health Secretary, Neil Gray, held talks with Australian officials today. The Australian state of Victoria withdrew as hosts last summer due to rising costs. Well, our sports news correspondent Chris McLaughlin has been following this story closely. Chris, where are we at then?
Well, this has been turning into something of a saga, hasn't it? But there has been frantic activity over the past couple of days. And the real game changer, pardon the pun, has been this injection of cash from the Commonwealth Federation of Australia. Now, they are desperate to get this over the line, providing multi-million pounds to just make sure the games still go ahead. That seems to have been enough to satisfy a very, very nervous Scottish Government who have been adamant that they will not spend a penny from the public purse on this. Now, Neil Gray, as you mentioned, had that conversation with Commonwealth Games Australia this morning. I'm told that meeting went very well. That was the final hurdle. Now, what happens now? There's a cabinet meeting tomorrow. I expect the deal to be ratified then, and then some kind of announcement will follow that. Not everyone will get behind this idea of a scaled-down Commonwealth Games, but the people that we spoke to in Glasgow today seemed pretty up for it.
No problem, I'd welcome it very much so.
I think it's very exciting, and Glasgow is so inclusive and welcoming and such a fantastic city.
I think that's quite good. Yeah.
I've only lived here for a couple of months, but it's a great city and I know that people really enjoy it when they come up here.
I think it's fantastic. I remember the last time it was here and I just thought the atmosphere in the city was great. All the parks were full, people were outside, and I think the participation from the Glasgow people.
Yeah, it's interesting, those memories, isn't it? But the people involved in this are at pains to say this won't be a redo of Glasgow 2014. So what would 2026 look like?
And that, Laura, is the reason and the only reason this is actually getting the go-ahead. You're right, this is a scaled-back Commonwealth Games. There's no doubt about that. Worth perhaps having a look at some of the comparisons to 2014. The budget, for example, 575 million. 10 years ago, 114 million pounds this time. So big challenges around the budget in terms of the sports. 17 10 years ago. 10 sports. We don't know which sports are going to be cut. There will be core sports like athletics and cycling, of course, but that is still to be determined. The venues, there were 14 in 2014. This time, just 4 venues for 2026, including a revamped Tollcross, we believe. Scotstoun will be used for the athletics. That will also have to be revamped. So this is a blueprint for the Commonwealth Games going forward. It will look and feel very, very different to 2014, but because it is a scaled-back Commonwealth Games, this new blueprint, it might just be enough to save the Games in the future.
Oh, well, we will wait to hear that announcement tomorrow. Thank you very much in the meantime, Chris McLaughlin. To some of the day's other stories now. And the shipbuilding firm Harland & Wolff, most famous for building the Titanic, is to be placed into administration for the second time in 5 years. The company says that while there will be 60 immediate redundancies, those employed at its Scottish shipyards in Methil and Fife and Arnish on the Isle of Lewis won't be affected. It's hoped potential buyers can be found for the yards in a sales process that's due to conclude next month. Texas will headline this year's Hogmanay party in Edinburgh, becoming the first band to front the event on 3 separate occasions. The lead singer, Charlene Spiteri, announced their New Year's slot during their concert at Glasgow's Hydro Arena last night. Now, a long-awaited final decision is due this evening on whether to allow the operators of Flamingo Land to build a resort on the banks of Loch Lomond. The proposal, which was submitted in 2018, has faced strong opposition from the local community. Well, a public meeting is ongoing in Balloch tonight. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane is there and we'll speak to him in just a moment. But first, this report on the story so far.
From the air, you can see the footprint of where this holiday resort is proposed to be built, at the point where Loch Lomond drains into the River Leven. Woodland Lodges nestled in the trees, a water park and hotel on the banks of the loch with a monorail running throughout. Flamingo Land insists it's a holiday resort and not a theme park, and that the whole thing will be sympathetic to its surroundings. This morning, members of the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park Board conducted a visit of the site.
Members, no, I'm sorry.
A small number of protesters were present. The Friends of Loch Lomond say the area needs this development, with day trippers bringing minimal spending to the town of Balloch.
The site we're talking about and we're standing on just now is former disused gravel pits, railway sidings with the rail link to Balloch Pier, and also a large 60-stand static holiday park was right at the pier head there where the proposal is for the hotel. So really we're bringing former derelict land that's been restored back into more productive use for the economic and social well-being of Balloch and the wider area.
It's since been landscaped as a park with the John Muir Way running right through it. More than 100 people have packed onto the pews of Lomond Parish Church for today's hearing. Representatives for Flamingo Land insisted any issues which led to the application being recommended for rejection can be easily overcome. They relate to the flood risk and the scale of the plan. 174,000 objections have been raised against the plans, largely orchestrated by a campaign from the Scottish Greens.
The developer's own traffic assessment shows it would bring up to 250 cars an hour onto already congested local roads. It would cause huge amounts of destruction to this world-famous natural environment. And that's a natural environment that the whole local economy around here depends on.
The National Park's remit is to balance protection of the natural environment with the need for development. That's what they'll need to sum up before making their decision.
Well, Kevin's been across that meeting all day. Kevin, how close are we to a decision tonight then?
Well, we still have no decision after 5.5 hours worth of a meeting, but it is definitely reaching its closing stages. We've heard from 11 people who were given permission to make representations for and against. We heard from the developer and then those people who support and oppose it. It has to be said that the majority of people from the public who are in the room in the church behind me are definitely against the scheme, because the loud applause came for those who were speaking against it and the muted jeers were for those who were speaking in favour of it. We've heard from all of those speakers. We've heard a long period of legal advice being offered to the members of the board on the decision that they're to make, and now they're discussing where they are going to go with that decision. I think we'll probably, if it ends up going in the way of the recommendation, which is for it to be rejected, then that will definitely see some cheers on the steps behind me. But if they decide to go against that recommendation and approve it, there will definitely be anger. Either way, we'll hear from the developers what their next steps will be.
Yes, we will await that decision and we will bring that as and when we get it. Thank you for the moment, Kevin in Balloch. Now, for 26 years, it's been a key fixture in Glasgow's nightlife scene. But now the tunes have stopped and the dance floor has emptied for one final time as the curtain comes down on the Shed nightclub. The closure of it mirrors the downward trend in the number of clubs open across the country. Our reporter James Chain has the story.
With a blast of the smoke machine and a final few hits, the Shed passed into Glasgow nightlife history. It was loved by many, and its demise is part of a much larger problem. Across Scotland, pubs, clubs and restaurants are often struggling to regain the swagger and momentum they enjoyed before the pandemic. But the owners and managers of these places say they've seen a 30 to 40% increase in operating costs, at the same time as a 10 to 15% downturn in trade.
What we noticed when we reopened, most late night venues when they reopened after COVID, was that the younger audience was very keen to get out and you know, go to clubs and to party and so on and so forth. But the slightly older audience had got used to sitting at home watching Netflix and, you know, maybe ordering a pizza and having a bottle of wine or whatever, and they never really came back.
Remember the fun-loving criminals? It's acts like this that are still bringing in that older audience and their cash. Hughie Morgan has been part of the music industry in the US and the UK for decades. He says saving venues is more important now than ever before.
I think the importance of nightlife or just stuff that's happening outside of your house is really important now. With the advent of digital life and we could do all these things online and virtually, it's good to have that visceral feeling of being in a group of people.
But there is a long list of problems. The owner of Scotland's largest nightclub has more than a few things to worry about.
Energy prices going through the roof, cost of living crisis, interest rates going up. Just a litany of disasters after that, in which we've all had to cope with it as route as we can.
With the Shed doors shut, there are 82 nightclubs left around Scotland. Their owners hope they won't become extinct, but they are bracing for more challenges and more change. James Chain, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Scotland made its mark on one of the biggest nights in the TV calendar, the Emmy Awards, which took place in LA last night. Baby Reindeer, which was created by the Scottish comedian Richard Gadd, won 4 awards, while the US version of the reality TV show The Traitors, which is filmed in Scotland, also won. Our arts correspondent Polly McLean reports.
And the Emmy goes to The Traitors.
It's the biggest night of the year for American television, but it was Scotland which kept taking centre stage. Alan Cumming, fresh from winning a Creative Emmy for Best Reality TV Show Host, helped the team behind The Traitors, which is made in Scotland, to pick up another award.
And I want to thank everyone in the castle at Ardross, the cast and crew who work so hard and get so wet by the Scottish weather. I also want to thank Scotland. I owe it everything, and it's such a beautiful co-star.
But it was another kilt-wearing Scot who was the evening's big winner. Comedian Richard Gadd said he created the show Baby Reindeer around his own experience of being stalked and sexually assaulted.
10 years ago, I was down and out, right? I never ever thought I'd get my life together. I never ever thought I'd be able to rectify myself with what had happened to me and get myself back on my feet again. And then here I am, just over a decade later, picking up one of the biggest writing awards in television, yeah? Now, so if you're struggling, keep going, and I promise you things will be okay. Thank you so much for this award.
The show is currently at the centre of a lawsuit filed by the woman who says she is the real-life Martha, and Gadd's true story is inaccurate. But it didn't stop the Emmys coming.
Richard Gadd, Baby Reindeer.
And coming.
And the Emmy goes to
Baby Reindeer!
4 in all for a show which started small at the Edinburgh Fringe and grew into a global hit.
If Baby Reindeer has proved anything, it's that there's no set formula to this. That you don't need big stars, proven IP, long-running series, catch-all storytelling to have a hit. That really, the only constant across any success in television is good storytelling. Good storytelling that speaks to our times. So, take risks, push boundaries, explore the uncomfortable, dare to fail in order to achieve. Thank you so much for this award.
Netflix may want to wait for the outcome of the latest legal action before deciding if the risk was worth it. Polly McLean, reporting Scotland.
OK, Amy's here with the sport, and apart from a potential Commonwealth Games, what else are we dealing with?
Lots happening today, Laura. Thanks very much. Good evening. Scotland's women cricket team have set off on their journey to the Middle East ahead of their first ever appearance at the ICC T20 World Cup, which gets underway at the start of next month. Some of the team met at Glasgow Airport this afternoon to make the flight to Dubai for a training camp and a series of warm-up matches before they begin their campaign in the United Arab Emirates. And coach Craig Wallace believes it's not just a significant moment for his players, but for the game of cricket in Scotland.
It's huge. Honestly, probably can't put it into words. I think the girls themselves have worked so hard over their whole careers to get here, and it's amazing for me to be a small part of that journey. But mainly for them, it's humongous. I think for the women's game in Scotland, hopefully it'll now go from strength to strength now that we're finally get on the world stage, and hopefully it's just the start of the beginning of an amazing journey.
Well, before Scotland get their campaign up and running next month, they'll play 2 warm-up games. The first of those against Pakistan a week on Saturday, and after that the final fixture before the real thing gets started. That is against Sri Lanka. And here are the nations joining Scotland in Group B. There they are, Bangladesh, who Scotland play in the opening game on the 3rd of October. Also in there, South Africa, West Indies, and what about that for a final game of Group B? Scotland will be taking on England.
I think there's huge belief within the team and what we've achieved over the last year. We know that we can put some fantastic performances out there, and we've got the ability to beat a lot of teams at this competition. So yeah, looking to kind of put our best game forward and see what happens. Yeah, massively important. I think just for girls in Scotland to see the visibility of a team from Scotland going to a World Cup and seeing them playing out there, and hopefully getting a bit more coverage and seeing that they could be playing in a World Cup themselves.
Football Now and Hearts have held talks with the Brighton owner Tony Bloom that could lead to the Tynecastle outfit utilising the entrepreneur's analytical company when it comes to recruitment at the club. Talks have been taking place since the early part of this year, and although no deal as yet has been signed and sealed, if an agreement is reached, it would lead to Bloom becoming a minority shareholder at Hearts with a multi-million-pound injection coming into the club. More on that story on the BBC Sport website. Now, Celtic have reported a post-tax profit of £13.4 million for the last financial year, down on the previous year's £40.7 million, largely due to an increase in operating expenses. Revenue is up by nearly £5 million to more than £124 million. Champions League participation and league titles last season for both the men and women's sides helped Celtic to another profitable year. The club recently made their most expensive signing, Arnie Ingles, who was on the score sheet in their 2-0 win over Hearts on Saturday. Dundee manager Tony Docherty has revealed Scottish FA head of referees Willie Collum contacted him to discuss a decision not to award Dundee a penalty in Saturday's 2-0 defeat at Ross County. The incident was subject to a VAR review after former county striker Simon Murray was brought down in the box. While frustrated to miss out on a spot kick in what was his side's first defeat of the season, Docherty praised Collum's approach, saying he appreciated his honesty and his openness. Rangers manager Philippe Clement believes his side have shown they are on the right track after their 1-0 victory over Dundee United yesterday. An early goal from Tom Lawrence moved the Ibrox side to third in the table, 5 points off the pace set by Celtic and Aberdeen. It was a first defeat of the season for Jim Goodwin's side, but the Tannadice boss wasn't too aggrieved by the result, which sees his side now drop to fourth in the table.
We're on the right track. We need to improve still a lot of things, but it's normal with the rebuild. So I know fans want direct results. I'm the first person who wants direct results because I want to win every game. And the players know that. They want that also, but we need to work for that and we need time for that to work on things.
I don't have too many arguments about the end result, to be honest. I think Rangers created 2 or 3 really good goal-scoring opportunities, whereas unfortunately from our own point of view we didn't really create anything.
To the SWPL and league leaders, Rangers secured a 6-1 win over Spartans yesterday, despite going behind early on, conceding what was their first goal of the season. Erin Rennie capitalised on a mix-up at the back by the hosts to slot home past the Rangers keeper. New signing Camille Lafay scored 2 goals in 2 minutes to put Rangers in front before Wilkinson, Hardy and McLaughlin then added to the scoring. Celtic managed a comfortable 3-0 win over Partick Thistle, and Hibernian bounced back from Derby defeat to Hearts to put 6 past newly promoted Queen's Park. There were also wins for Hearts, Montrose and Glasgow City, and you can see all the goals on the highlights programme on the BBC Scotland channel at 7.
Now tonight, over on the BBC Scotland channel, Banjo Beale is back for Series 2 of his interior design show, Designing the Hebrides. Ahead of the first episode, the Aussie spoke to the Nine about his love for the Scottish Islands and some of the unique challenges he faced this time round.
We're on Easdale for the first episode. The only mode of transport is a wee boat across and wheelbarrows. So we can't just load up my van and head there and unload it at the front door. I think it took us 11 trips back and forth, multiple wheelbarrow runs. And if you forget something, you can't just duck down to the hardware store.
And you can see that full interview on the 9 later. OK, Chris is here with the weather. I mean, you did well today.
And more of the same, actually, for the week ahead. Lovely summery picture here. And I think, actually, this week at times will feel summery, Laura. Thank you very much indeed. Very good evening to you. We had lots of sunshine around today, actually, didn't we? But it wasn't the case everywhere, I know. We've seen some rather thick cloud around parts of the West Coast, the Hebrides and the Northern Isles, and that's with us overnight tonight. Some outbreaks of rain pushing in towards Shetland, with the thickest cloud elsewhere, a few spots of rain, but to the south and east of that band of cloud is dry with clear skies. Temperatures around 6 to 13 Celsius, coolest where it's clearest. So, For the week ahead, it is a question of high pressure situated overhead and providing us dry, sunny and increasingly warm weather. So initially tomorrow we do have the cloudier zone towards the west coast, through the Highlands and Islands, in towards the Northern Isles. The overnight rain clears, but elsewhere dry and fine, lots of sunshine developing. And as we head through towards the afternoon, even around the west coast, some of that cloud just tending to dissipate, so brightening up here. Across the mainland in the sunshine, we're looking at temperatures around 20 or 21 degrees. With light winds, that'll feel very pleasant indeed. A bit of high cloud at times, giving some hazy sunshine, but for most, a decent day. You can see those cloudier conditions across parts of the Western Isles and the Northern Isles, with the odd spot of light rain across Orkney and Shetland, but generally dry. As we head in towards tomorrow evening, plenty of evening sunshine, and then that area of high pressure just working its way northwards and clearing that cloud. So it's dry and clear overnight tomorrow night, not desperately cold at all, perhaps down to around 7 degrees there in Dumfries. To Wednesday, and for all, it's a dry, sunny and at times warm day. Temperatures in the warmest spots up to around 22 or 23 degrees. Always that bit cooler around the coast and across the Isles, perhaps some low cloud in around the Moray Firth there. And then for the end of the week, that high pressure is sticking with us, but we start to develop a bit of an easterly drift off the North Sea. That means eastern parts of the country will be cooler and at times cloudier on Thursday and Friday compared with the west. But still, in the sunshine, not bad. And in the best of the sunshine, 20, 21, maybe 22 degrees. That's the forecast for now.
At last. Thank you, Christopher. Now, just before we go back to Kevin Keenan Balloch, where we have a decision on the Flamingo land development. Kevin, what have they decided then?
Yeah, Laura, you might be able to tell from the smiles on the faces of people coming out of the church now that that decision is that the planning application has been rejected, and that fight that has gone on for the best part of a decade now is in some sense over for them in the sense of the fight against this decision. We're yet to hear from the developer whether or not they intend to seek permission to appeal that decision, so the fight might not be over completely, but for now, for campaigners, this is a significant victory.
OK, Kevin Keenan Balloch, thank you very much for bringing us that update. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Remember, you can catch up with the team for your national and international news over on the 9 on the BBC Scotland channel later. In the meantime, from all of us here, enjoy your evening. Good night.